The Archive of Silent Hearts. In a city of rain-slicked streets and perpetual twilight, where the hum of the freeway was a constant hymn, there stood a small, cluttered shop tucked between a boarded-up arcade and a forgettable diner. Its sign, Atlas Archives, glowed with a faint, amber light, and inside was a universe of forgotten voices. This was the domain of Arthur Pembleton, a man whose face was a roadmap of gentle wrinkles, and whose hands were always faintly smudged with ink. For 40 years, he had run not a bookstore, but a letter repository. Atlas Archives was the final destination for letters that never reached their intended recipients, returned to sender, addresses faded, recipients long gone. They were the ghosts of conversations that never were, and Arthur was their reluctant custodian. He didn't just store them, he cared for them. Each envelope was carefully dried if damp, its creases softened. He'd catalogue them not by name or date, but by the emotion he felt radiating from the paper: longing, regret, fury, hope. He believed words held weight, and a room full of unread words was the heaviest place on earth. One Tuesday, a new box arrived from a defunct post office in another state. As Arthur sorted through the usual bills and circulars, a small, cream-colored envelope fluttered to the floor. It was addressed in an elegant, looping script to a Mr. Alastair Finch at the Seagull's Nest Hotel, a place Arthur knew had been demolished a decade prior. The return address was simply E, and the postmark was over 50 years old. A rule he'd never broken was to never open a letter. The sanctity of a sealed message was his religion. But this one hummed with a quiet, profound sorrow that seemed to seep into his fingertips. For days, it sat on his desk, a silent accusation. The urge to understand its story, to perhaps finally give its message a home, became an ache in his chest. He finally surrendered. With a steam kettle and a trembling letter opener, he performed the delicate surgery, the seal giving way with a soft sigh. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and a pressed sprig of lavender that crumbled to dust at the touch. My dearest Alastair, they say the hotel is closing. I suppose this will find an empty lobby, or perhaps just be tossed away. I've written this 100 times in my head, but the words never seem right on paper. I was a coward that morning. I saw the fear in your eyes when you spoke of your family, and I let you walk out onto that rainy pier without telling you the truth. The truth was, I would have gone anywhere with you. I would have left everything. The truth was, I loved you more than I loved my own future. I waited for you every day for a year at our cafe. I still go sometimes, an old woman haunting a place of her youth, drinking terrible coffee, and looking for a ghost in a grey coat. Wherever you are, I hope your life was full of joy. I hope you built the world you wanted to see. And I hope, somehow, you knew. Always, Ilara. Arthur sat for a long time, the weight of Ilara's 50-year-old regret anchoring him to his chair. This was no longer an artifact, it was a life, suspended in ink. He couldn't just file it away. He had to try. His quest became his obsession. He spent weeks in library archives, scrolling through microfiche census records and old city directories. He discovered an Alastair Finch had indeed existed, a promising architect who had moved to the West Coast, married, and had 2 children. He had died 5 years ago. The obituary was brief, but it mentioned a daughter, Clara Finchmiller, who lived in the same city. Arthur's heart hammered against his ribs. He found a number. He dialed, his voice a dry rustle as he explained who he was and the impossible letter he held. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, a woman's voice, thick with emotion, said, "My father, he talked about a woman named Ilara once, when he was very ill. He said she was the one who got away. He said he'd always regretted not being braver." A week later, Clara stood in the Atlas Archives, the cream-colored envelope in her hands. She didn't open it. She simply held it, tears tracing quiet paths down her face. He looked for her, she whispered. Years later, after my mother passed, he tried to find her. But her family had moved, and he had nothing to go on. He thought she'd forgotten him. Arthur watched as the decades of silence between two souls finally collapsed in his dusty shop. He had not delivered the letter to its intended recipient, but he had delivered its truth. Its weight had finally been lifted. Clara looked around at the shelves groaning with unread words, with a newfound awe. All of these, she breathed. Arthur nodded, a quiet smile touching his lips for the first time in weeks. All of them, waiting for their chance to be heard. After she left, Arthur picked up a letter from the hope bin. It was time to break a few more rules.